is Sherry Wilde, and I am the author of the book The Forgotten Promise, which tells the story of my abduction experiences. I prefer to call them encounters. So I tell how I went through the whole process of coming into the awareness of the fact that I was being taken by these beings, these entities from another world, and the process that I went through to come to terms with it, the fear, the disbelief, the bargaining, everything that's involved with being forced to believe something that you previously didn't even know was possible, and then to find out that it's happening in your world. So I've already talked a little bit about that. So now I'm going to share a little bit more of what it's like to be what I eventually found myself to be, not an abductee, not a victim, but a volunteer. That is that I made the decision, the choice to come to planet Earth, and along with millions of others. Nothing special about this, actually. Everyone on the planet is here for a purpose. Everyone has a role to play in this wonderful time that we're going through. Mine just happens to be that I came in from another dimension, and the purpose of the plan was to raise the vibration of the planet, so of humanity, in order to assist humanity in possibly awakening in time to go with Gaia into the fifth dimension. So the whole reason that the call went out from Gaia for volunteers in around the linear year 1945 is because of the atomic bomb that was detonated. And she made that decision at that time to go on to the next opportunity she had to go on to the fifth dimension with or without her children. And my guys told me that in 1989, I believe, that Da told me when he was teaching me to be a light worker. What he did is he taught me to read people's light, their vibration, by looking into their eyes. And I had an opportunity to do that for 2 1/2 days. And it was a lot of fun. And basically I would just look into a person's eyes and I could register, I was given the tools to register their light vibration. And then I would get, you are staying or you are leaving. And when I asked him what that was all about, he told me, that was the first time I ever heard about, because I was on this side of the veil, that I heard about the whole ascension thing. And he said that it was an absolute that planet Earth was going to go into the higher frequencies, and those of her children who were ready to go with her would be allowed to do so because they had been in domination long enough. And those who were not ready, that was fine, but they would be taken to another planet, another third dimensional planet, to continue on their journey. So that was pretty surprising to me, but that is the way that it happened on planet Earth. So in 1987, when we had the harmonic convergence, that was part of the plan too. In 1945, Gaia asked for assistance, and it was decided that we would flood the planet with souls coming on to incarnate in body, in the hopes that that would help raise the vibration, the awareness, and it would trigger others to remember. And then they would also flood the planet with all this love and light, and that was the harmonic convergence in 1987. And those days in August were powerful days for me. Those were the days where I basically feel like I got my orders. And it was very soon after that I started having the encounters. I had that period of activity. And in 1988, I was regressed, and my memory was opened up, and I remembered that I became aware that I was being abducted. So there's like two aspects to it. You know, there's me on this side of the veil, and then there's the me that was there before I came here. The me that's on this side of the veil reacted in terror to the fact that I was being taken. And I had a lot of fear for a long time, until I started to put the pieces together and started to realize things they were teaching me, like to be a light reader. I mean, I had conscious recall of him telling me this story. I had conscious awareness of the fact that I was reading people's light, their vibration. So I couldn't reconcile the fact that they could be teaching me those things and still be evil. And what I discovered was that as long as I was trying to analyze it and think my way through who are these beings, what are they all about, that I was running into fear. And I was listening to the people around me, the investigators, and their conclusion was that it was a negative experience. And anything that you would read or any of the conferences that I went to, it was all fear-based. I started to listen to my heart when there came a time when I was at a conference and who was the guy? He's very well known. One of the guys who did regressions, and I can't think of his name right now. And he was saying that they were studying children who had been abducted, children who had been taken and shown the planet being destroyed. As he was up on the stage, and he said, we believe that the reason that they're doing this, the aliens are doing this to these children, is because they want to study our emotions. We don't believe the E.T.s have any emotions. They're very aloof. And so they're jealous, or they're wanting to know how to have these emotions. They're curious, whatever. And when I heard him say that, I knew here in my heart that that was not true. I didn't have time to analyze it. And so I listened to my heart, and I had all I could do to keep from jumping up and saying, no, you're wrong about that. That's not the way that it is. And that was the turning point for me. And I started to go, I know more than I think I know about what's going on with me. And I need to redirect my study and stop analyzing and picking apart everything and looking at it that way. I need to just allow my heart to guide me, my inner knowingness. So that was the beginning of my coming to terms with why this was happening to me. But it was a long journey. And there was an agenda, a timeline that they had set, and I had set with them, I guess, in truth, because I planned my life before I came here. When I volunteered to come here, I was a sixth dimensional being. I was not in form. I was an etheric body. And I had not been in form up to this point. And so coming into the third dimension was a challenge, but it was one that I wanted. I came to be of service to Gaia. Absolutely love this planet and would do anything for her. And I could see, this plan, it was a make it or break it. Besides, it was a last-ditch effort. It was a last chance. If a soul wanted to come on to Gaia, it was one of the last opportunities to do so, because she was going into the higher frequency. She was going to ascend to the fourth and then the fifth dimension. And the third dimensional planet of Earth was going to be no more. And it is no more. And planet Earth, and the third dimensional planet Earth, was quite the place, as many of us know. It was dominated by fear and controlled by fear. It was created by fear. It was not created by those that oversaw the planet and eventually seeded the planet. The free will of the humans who lived on planet Earth, their free will was sort of hijacked by their fear. And so it fell in vibration. And unfortunately, it became a world that was pretty much enslaved. So deciding to come onto planet Earth was a pretty big decision. It was for all of us. But we knew the truth. When you're on that side of the veil, you see it for what it is, and you understand that it's all a game and it's all good, and it's just an experience that you want to have. So in 2009, when Da came back into my life after being gone almost 20 years, I was pretty calm for some reason. They had me in an altered state, but still I was fairly calm because I had come to terms somewhat with the whole abduction scenario. I'd worked my way through it. I didn't have the answers, but I had found some peace around it. But still, I said, "What are you doing back here?" And he was surprised and said, well, you know that you had been told about the earth changes that were going to be occurring, and we're in the midst of that, and there's work to be done. So one thing that that occurred in 1989, 88 or 89, that was interesting to me, that I've remembered since I wrote the book even, and that is, I had the memory of it, but I couldn't figure out how it all fit together. I had this memory of having a meeting in my living room sometime in 88 or 89, where Da had come in etheric form, and another being was with him, and then I was sleeping on my sofa. I had taken some time off work because I was so stressed by all that was going on. So I was in the midst of this 88, 87, 88, 89, this year and a half period of time when I had intense activity. And at that time, they came in to try to influence me and suggest that I leave planet Earth, that my work was done and that I could go at that time. I had that memory, and I couldn't reconcile that with the fact that I had volunteered to come to planet Earth. I thought, well, why would I leave back then? I guess I was supposed to leave in 1990 or 91, and via a car accident. And I didn't understand how that could be if I volunteered to come to planet Earth. So I left it out of the book because it didn't fit. And I thought I must be mistaken, and yet it bothered me a lot. I talked about it to my editor, I talked to people about it, and I said, I can't get clarity on it. How is it that I volunteered to come in? How is it that at the age of 10 they showed me that I was going to be losing my home and my family and my possessions in order to experience that, so that I could better relate to the humans and what they were going to be going through. And so I left it out of the book, figuring there had to be some kind of mistake, or at least I couldn't get clarity on it. It was interesting that just recently I did get clarity on it, and I just had to ask. And Da came and explained to me. He actually just kind of pulled back the curtain, and they had come to me and said that you've done enough and you'll be of more service if you come back with us now. We want you back on the ship. And when I signed on, I do remember that when I volunteered to come, the primary focus of my volunteering was to be a participant in the hybrid program. Because in 1947, 48, when linear time, when I made the decision to come on, and I was born in December of 1950. So at that time, the timeline showed that planet Earth was going to ascend, but very few of her children were going to go with. And so it looked like the planet would be cleansed of humanity in order for her to ascend. And that had been done before. A few times before, the planet had been flooded, and the beings on the planet were recycled back onto the planet again. But this time, because she was going into the fifth dimension, the children of Earth would not be, those souls could not be recycled back onto this planet. And so the way it was probably going to work was, they would go elsewhere or go back to source, and then sort of get calibrated, I guess is the word, and start all over again. So I came in to be part of the hybrid program so that we could preserve some of the human DNA, the Earth human DNA, because it's a unique species, and it was an evolving species, the biological entity of the Earth human. So I came in to participate in that, and that's why I had so many. That's part of the reason why I had so many visits from the time I was a very young child. But when I was a teenager and young woman, they came a lot to harvest the eggs. And so having served in that capacity, they didn't necessarily want me to stay any longer and go through the trauma of the Earth. Again, in 1988, when they were proposing this, or 89, whatever time it was, they told me that at that time only 12% of the Earth humans, it looked like only 12% were going to go into the fifth dimension. And while no one wanted to give up, no one was willing to give up, that's for sure, but it felt like I could be of better service on the other side. So I thought that was really an interesting revelation for me, because it resolved. I've had numerous things like that happen, things that didn't jive, things that didn't fit with what I thought or knew my story to be and my work as a volunteer, and there'd be these things that would show up, and I would say, well, that doesn't fit. So then my tendency is to try to unravel the whole thing, because it's a far-fetched story, right? It's crazy, the story that I sit here and I tell. Most people are going to find it crazy. Very hard to believe. And I came in as a Capricorn, so I'm very pragmatic, very down to earth. So the hardest person to convince of this story is me. There's nobody around who's had a harder time trying to swallow this than me. And there's no one who's worked harder to try to disprove it than me. I just didn't want to believe it from the get-go. I'm to the point now where I'm speaking about it, I embrace it. But every now and then when something like that happens, when I can't pull the pieces together, I do have a tendency to go, well, it's all crazy. It was all crazy to begin with. What was I thinking? Of course, and go back to my 3D matrix thinking. And I've learned to not do that. I'm learning to not do that. I'm trusting more and more. And as I trust more and more, the answers come more readily. They come faster, easier. But it's one thing that Da has told me right from the get-go, all the way from the get-go. The reason that they did some of the things that in the book, if you read my book, there are some things that were done that seem cruel. Dropping me in the middle of the night in the pig pen at my girlfriend's house, freezing, winter night, with just a t-shirt and bare feet. Why would they do such a thing if they love me so much? Why did they do what I call the thundering footsteps? Frightening, so frightening, the sounds that, until I was so afraid I surrendered. And they did a lot of different things that seem cruel, but they're not, in truth. Those were place markers that they put out there for me, just like they did just recently when I said I wasn't going to have the book published, and Da came and talked to me and said, have you forgotten the promise you made? And when he left, he made a minor spectacle of himself. And he does that, flashing his face up on my ceiling in the middle of the night. Those things that seem so terrifying at the time are done to imprint my conscious memory with the fact that this is real, so that I have like a touchstone as I'm awakening and remembering what's gone on in my life and trying to gauge what's real and what's not real. I have those imprints that anchor me into this world from the reality of the experience. And so that's why they did it. And they took a lot of care to do that for me, and I'm grateful for it. And so as I move forward in my work as a volunteer, I got my way. I didn't leave, of course, via a car accident. I wouldn't leave my children. I refused to go. And I stayed. And so if I was going to stay, then the next phase was that I needed to then eventually write this book and do this work. So that's fine. That was what was on tap for me anyway. That was the program I had. And we all have exit points in our lives as we move along through. We set our lives up that way, that we have exit points where if we decide that we no longer want to stay, we can take that exit. And I have them in my life like everyone does. And I had the option, but I didn't take it. So I'm staying, I stayed on, and I'm willing to continue to do this work as a volunteer. And it means putting myself out here and talking about things that a lot of people are uncomfortable with. And what I've come to understand is that the abduction story is a story that intrigues people. And so it gets their attention. Whether they believe it or not, it still gets their attention. And some will listen to it openly, and with acceptance, depending on their own experiences. Other people will have resistance to it and dismiss it out of hand. I can't probably reach those people. It's the people who are in between there somewhere, who are curious enough to listen to what I have to say and be open enough to at least consider it somewhat. And to them I would say that I'm grateful that they listen, but I really don't care if they believe my story or not, because all I want to do is get your attention so that I can trigger in you and be a catalyst for you to say, well, okay, I can't buy what she's saying. It's too far out. Or I don't agree with this, but I agree with that. That's fine. What I say is just go within. I'm asking people to go within and find their own truth as to who they are. Because that's the big question everyone should be asking themselves right now, is who am I? Why am I here? What's this all about? Because as we move forward into the fifth dimension, it is true that we all will have the opportunity to evolve with Gaia as she moves along that path, is moving along that path rapidly. But those who don't resonate with her will reach a certain level and cannot go any further. And so everyone will go to the level that they are able to go to. And we have this amazing opportunity to go all the way to the fifth dimension. And we would just like to see as many of the Earth humans as possible make that. Because while the third dimension was a very tough place on planet Earth, fourth dimension is the cleansing, more or less. It's the looking at what we've created and recognizing that we are the creators of our own planet, of our own reality. The fifth dimension is where we move out of that. We move out of the world of duality. Third dimensional and fourth dimensional Earth is a world of duality. You've still got the polarities. And as long as you still have the polarities, there's still that opportunity for you to be enslaved and controlled. Especially on a planet that's been enslaved the way this one has been. The system is already in place. And through the media, television, news, through so many different ways, we're being kept distracted. And we're being lied to and hypnotized in so many different ways. So it's a real challenge to awaken, or to get these humans to awaken, because they've been taught to laugh and ridicule anything that is outside of this narrow band of what is supposedly called normal. And so trying to get them to think outside the box is a real challenge. They're afraid of being ridiculed themselves, laughed at, and even those who are wanting to look outside the box and try to view life from a higher perspective, or from at least a different perspective, they're so distracted. And the controllers of the planet, they've been working hard to make sure that they're distracted by, financial issues and weather issues and health issues and all kinds of everything, wars and anything that they can throw at us, they're throwing at us. If only the Earth humans would see that that's a game and look right through it. Stop listening to the news. You really won't die if you don't know what's happening out there. You have to have a certain level of awareness, certainly, and you can get it from other sources than the major news sources that are available to us, the primary ones that we all think of. And instead, look elsewhere, but mostly let most of it go, I think I would say, because it's not really that important. It's like playing a big game of Monopoly. It doesn't, at the end of the day, it's not going to mean anything. So what if you own Boardwalk and I own Maverick Place or whatever it's called? It doesn't matter. So humans need to understand that what's important right now is the evolution of their soul, the awakening of their soul. Their soul is yearning to awaken. That's why they signed on to come here. I'm not the only one who came here with a purpose. Every person, every soul has a purpose. So that's the thing that everyone should be asking themselves. What is my purpose? What function did my Father give me to fulfill in this world? That's the other thing, is this whole thing of karma. The idea that we incarnated onto the planet and came here to learn lessons is another thing that needs to be looked at and dismissed, let go of. Karma is the game of the ego, the fear-based little self that has been controlling the planet, which is within each and every one of us because we are dual-minded. So karma was created to make us believe in our littleness, in our belief that we're not good enough, and to keep us tied to this planet. You don't evolve. Once you're on planet Earth, it's very, very hard to move out of planet Earth. You do get stuck here unless you become enlightened, which is very rare. So karma has been a game that was enacted on the planet, and I certainly bought into it when I was in the Matrix and I thought that it was a perfectly reasonable way of looking at things, that you had to work your way back home to God. And that there were lessons, and that after every lifetime you reviewed it and you saw where you failed and where you didn't do well, and that you needed to learn more. Now when I look at it, it makes me laugh to think that I believed that, because the truth of it is that we were created perfect. And all we have to do is wake up and remember the truth of who we are. Yes, we make mistakes. We're three-dimensional beings. We're experiencing a three-dimensional world of duality, so there's going to be mistakes. But there's no such thing as a sin. Sin does not, our Father, Mother God, does not look at us and consider anything that we do a sin. Nothing. It's not possible, because we are created as an extension of our Creator, our God. So the whole karma thing is going away. It's falling away. It's tumbling, which is good, because that's just another way of keeping us trapped and enslaved. So it's just me saying this to people who might take offense at it if they haven't already heard this. They might need to be with that for a while. They might have some problems accepting that. And again, I would just ask that if it doesn't resonate with their heart, then that's fine. Just let it be. And that's true of anything that anyone says. You should always run it through your own heart and see how it feels. I did a lot of that, and eventually it just leads you to the truth. It has to, if you're being honest with yourself. Your ego will get in there and lie to you sometimes, and you have to learn to discern what is the truth and what your ego is presenting to you as the truth, and saying to you, no, come over here and believe this, because isn't this what you always believed, and doesn't this make more sense? So if you start analyzing, then you know that you're an ego, and that you're not looking at it through your heart. As far as writing the book and the impact that it's had, I get emails, and I sometimes even get phone calls. People track me down. And I'm hearing from a lot of people that the book is doing exactly what Da told me it would do, which I'm grateful for. It's triggering and awakening in those that are ready to awaken to the idea that they are here also as a volunteer. And even those who are not volunteers are getting a message out of the book. And it's very humbling for me to hear from those people. I love hearing from them. I try to answer every email and every inquiry I get. I don't always have a lot of time to do it, but I do respond. And I have people who are following my blog, and I'm grateful for that, because I think for every person who it resonates with, then that means that they're going out into the world and sharing the message, maybe, or at least some message of the awakening. It doesn't have to be mine. But there are other volunteers who have connected with me, who some knew they were volunteers but didn't want to talk about it, weren't sure what this all meant, and now they feel empowered to also start talking about it, which is awesome, really awesome. And then there are those who And these are the ones that I also really want to reach, because I know what it feels like, those who have had what they call the abduction experience and still had fear around it. And that's a terrible thing to live with, that feeling of being a victim. And so if my book, my story, can help them to see it from a different perspective and recognize that they aren't a victim. Now, I know that there are different layers and levels to this abduction scenario. Certainly mine, I felt like a victim. They were coming to me and taking me out of my bed at night. They were taking me from my car. I had bruises, needle marks, I had all of that. And it certainly felt like I was a victim. So it's easy to believe you're a victim. But even if you're the subject of the military abductions, which I've had a few of those mixed in with mine, you can tell the difference. With those, the energy is not the same. With the entities, it's not the people that you're usually with. And it's just more clumsy, amateurish. It's not at all the same. With those, it's a little bit more, probably more easy to feel like you're a victim because of the way that they are. But again, everything happens to you with your approval on some level. It is not possible for anything to occur in your life without you accepting it on the soul level. And that's a hard one for people to accept, because in my Course in Miracles class, when we talk about that, the example, someone always brings up the example, what about that little child down the street that was abused so terribly and then killed or whatever, tortured, whatever. I mean, terrible things in this world happen. But again, I would say from a higher perspective, that soul chose to have that experience, to play that role, because there were things that needed to be brought to the surface to be looked at for the rest of us who were witness to that sort of behavior. And so it's also about releasing energy. So the universe being energy and us being just the hologram that's playing out the energy that's in play here. And so it's that recognition that from a higher level, we see our bodies as not being able to truly suffer and die. It's just really a projection of our mind. And when you see it from that level, and I know that that's hard, that's really hard, because we're here in this, yes, this is a body. As Einstein said, it's all an illusion, albeit a very, very strong one, I think is how he put it, or something like that. And a very real one. It is, it's hard to deny that this isn't real. But it's not. It's an illusionary world. It's an experience that we're having, and it's fun. It's a game. And we need to lighten up and not take it so seriously. That's part of the awakening process. Going from dual-mindedness to unity consciousness is going to be a big shift for humans to make. And I'm not sure, I certainly can't answer that question. I don't think any of the spiritual teachers on planet Earth can answer that. My guys can't. They don't answer it. They don't know. We don't know how it's going to play out. The Creator doesn't even really know. I mean, there are timelines, endless timelines on how this can go, and each one of us being a life stream, part of the one, but a singular life stream that's here having this experience, is going to have our own awareness of how it plays out, and we're going to create our own scenario. So it's all about vibration and raising our vibration as high as we possibly can. So people say to me, how do you raise your vibration? Raising your vibration is the same as living through your heart, but it makes it a lot easier to live through your heart if you do a couple practices. And one of those, of course, is going into the silence and meditating and finding the stillness within you. And when you're in the stillness, there are a number of things that you can do. You connect to Source, and you set that goal to connect with Source. You ask for help in raising your vibration. You surrender your will, which is an okay thing to do because your will has been hijacked anyway by your fear-based ego. And So your free will was intentionally meant to allow you to make the choices of how you wanted to co-create with the Supreme Creator. So when you're here and you have free will, but you've given it over to your fear-based ego, you no longer have free will. And it's the fearful part of yourself that's running your life. And that's what's creating this world of chaos. We've given the power to the controllers of the planet, which is nothing more than another aspect of ourselves playing that role. They can't have that power unless we give it to them. So we take it back by stepping into the light, by stepping in and aligning ourselves with our true authentic self, which is our God self. So you do that by doing a prayer of surrender. Surrender does not mean waving a red flag or a white flag. It sounds like it is, but surrender really means yielding to another way of thinking, yielding, in this case, to your higher self, to your true self. To me, surrender means giving up defense and allowing our innocence and yielding to our invulnerability. Because we are invulnerable. The truth of it is we are invulnerable. When we are in the alliance with our true self, our God self, with our spirit, with our higher self, whatever name, it doesn't matter. You're invulnerable and you don't need defense. This world is very much a world of defensiveness. If you notice that, everyone is defensive and they're defending against something. It's really interesting, but it's because I believe there's so much guilt. And the guilt comes from way back the fall, when the Course in Miracles teaches that it's because we believe we turned our back on God and that we ran away from home. And I see that, and it manifests itself in a lot of ways, but the guilt is prevalent, terribly. It's just terrible in these beings on this planet. So there's all this guilt, and it just triggers this need to defend. So you do a prayer of surrender, giving over your will, which is the ego. In other words, you're surrendering the ego. And what you do is basically you're not giving up anything except for the ego, the fear-based little self. And you're aligning with your true self. And you are affirming that your will is one with your Creator, which is to the truth, because you are an aspect of the Creator. And so you want to align your will with the Creator's will. And you literally speak those words, and you do that. And you ask for assistance in doing it. So I'm talking now about how do you raise your vibration. This is how you raise your vibration. You can't go to the fifth dimension and still be listening to the ego. You can't still be listening to that voice inside your head, that little voice that tells you that you're no good, and that little voice that tells you that you're guilty, and that you're not going to get to the fifth dimension while you're still listening to that. So one way or the other, if you don't choose to surrender your will, there will come a time when it will probably be forced upon you by your higher self, which loves you and wants you to go to the fifth dimension. So what will happen is things will happen in your life to where you're down on the floor saying, my God, how could this be happening to me? My God, where are you? My God, do you hear me? Help me. And there you go. Whatever it takes, help me. Whatever it takes, show me a different way. I need help. There's the prayer of surrender. But my advice is don't wait until you're down on the floor. That's your higher self that's doing that to you. That's yourself, your God self doing that, saying, do you see? You need to do this a different way. Find yourself. Find your way back to the Creator. You've wandered off. You've gone too far now. That's as far as the Creator will allow you to go. You need to come back. So may as well just do it on your own. Surrender your will and then learn trust. So you surrender your will and your life will change. You'll start to immediately see changes. And it isn't just reading a prayer of surrender. It's heartfelt surrender. You have to be on board. And then you trust in whatever happens to you. It's a wonderful way to live, because when you do a prayer of surrender every morning, then it doesn't matter what happens to you that day or seems to happen to you. Nothing happens to us. But whatever occurs in your day, it's always going to be for your highest and best. Always, no matter what it is. You're running late to an appointment. Seems like that's a bad thing, but no, there's a reason why you're running late, and you need to trust in that. And everything that shows up, things that we don't always even understand, sometimes in retrospect, you'll see the divine in it, and you'll say, oh, so that's why that went that way. I thought that was a bad thing, but that turns out that was a very good thing. Other times, there'll be things that you'll look back and you'll go, I don't know, I don't get it, but you still trust. The reason that your trust will build is because as soon as you do a prayer of surrender, the Course in Miracles teaches us that all the angels of heaven will come to support you. And that's absolutely true. When you do the prayer of surrender, it's an awakening. It's another soul. It's another light that has just gone from being a tiny little spark. It's flared. It's ready to awaken. It's coming home. It's saying, I'm coming home now. And so all the angels of heaven will support you. And miracles start to show up. You start to notice little synchronicities. You get support. And that's to show you, yes, you're walking a different path now. You've turned back toward God and you're coming home. And so that's how you raise your vibration. And you release fear. Any places in your bodies, your physical, emotional, etheric, mental body, where you're holding on to fear. Fear can be in the form of anger, judgments, anything that's not love. And it causes disease. But even the fear that doesn't cause disease, it can cause emotional unwellness. Depression, anxiety. If you have any of that in your life, you're carrying around grudges and you're carrying around fear, judgments. So what you want to experience is love, peace, and joy. If you're not experiencing love, peace, and joy, then you're aligning yourself with your ego. So Anelia Benz, Ascension 101 on her website, has a fear release meditation or exercise that's very much like the one that my guides taught me. My guides showed me back in 2009 or 8. No, 9 or 10, actually. They showed me this. They came to me one night and they showed me like this pillar of light. And I've seen this pillar of light many, many times, so I knew what it was. And I said, okay, that's me. And that's the true essence. That's who I really am. That's who we all are, is this light, this shaft of light. And it's always a dazzling thing to see. And I'm always amazed by it. And I'm like, wow, that's beautiful. It's just beautiful. And it's light flowing because the Creator's love and light sustains us. And it's flowing through us. And then Da said to me, well, come in closer, Sherry. Come in closer and look at this. And so as I came in closer to this pillar of light, you could see places where the light, like it was almost like there were individual little cords of light going through it. And he said, do you see in places where there are little chunks of matter, like coal, black places? And I did. I saw that. And he said, that's where you're harboring grievances, grudges, fears, anything. That's blocking. You see how it's blocking? The light is not able to flow through there. You get enough of that in there, that's where your disease comes from. That's where your illness is. That's where pain and suffering. He said your job is to release those pieces of coal, those dark areas. And I said, well, how do you do that? And he said, you look at them. You recognize them. You don't have to understand them. But you just look at them and you just say, I don't need you to be there anymore. You came for a purpose, but I no longer need that purpose. I no longer need to learn lessons. Karma's gone. I'm going to release this and transmute it into light, transmute it into love. So you just find the places in your body, and that's what the way Anelia Benz teaches it. You scan your body and you find the places where the energy seems to be blocked, where you're holding. Maybe if you're able to do that, you can sometimes find it. But even if you can't, what I tell people is just fake it. Just fake it. Go with whatever, because we all have it. We all have places in our bodies, our emotional, our mental, physical, and etheric bodies, where we're holding on to some kind of grudge or grievance or unforgiveness of some sort, some belief that we've been wronged. And so you just put it in the light and you transform it into light, and it just clears away. And that's how you raise your vibration, because that's what our vibration is. When I was taught to read people's light by looking into their eyes, it was seeing the light, the light that they are. And so the more light you can have flowing through you, it comes from our Creator and flows through us, the higher your vibration is, and the higher you will go during this period of ascension that we are in. So everyone wants to go as high as they possibly can, because it's a lot more fun being in the fifth dimension than in the fourth, let me tell you. In unity consciousness, I remember it from before I came here. And then I also remember it from being with my guys. Every time I'm with them, if I get to spend any length of time with them at all, it rubs off on me, and I love being there. It's in a place, if you can imagine, being in a place where there is only acceptance, only love. There's no judgment. There's no having to defend anything. There's no having to explain anything. There's only just this wonderful acceptance of who you are and gratitude for who you are. And you feel it for them as well. And it's not the kind of emotional love that we are used to here. This is an interesting kind of love on planet Earth. That love is more a state of being, and it just permeates your whole essence, and you resonate with it. And so if I spend a lot of time with my guys, if I have a series of encounters if I'm during a time when, like I was back in the 80s, when they were coming 3, 4, 5 times a week, so I was spending hours and hours and hours with them. It affects who you are. You become more psychic, you become more aware, you become a healer, your touch can heal, and you have an appreciation for all of life. And that's a really great place to be, great state of mind to be in. So that's where I want to go. I want to go back home. The idea that some would be taken off the planet, that is what I was told back in 1988 when I was doing the light reading, and Da explained to me about the Earth changes. And I had a real problem with that. I had a real problem that some would stay on the planet and go to this supposed wonderful place, but I had questions about that because they had shown me the planet being destroyed when I was a little girl, and I thought, well, why would that be a good thing for those who were able to resonate with a higher vibration and who had, evolved to that point? It didn't seem like a very good thing. But I've since come to understand that the scenario that was in play at that time has changed, because we do create our reality through our thoughts and through our vibration and through the collective. So now it's always changing. It's always changing. And as Da told me even back then, there is the hope that if there's enough level of vibration, it will have the effect of pulling all up. I don't know if that's happened. There are some spiritual teachers who are saying that has happened. But as far as taking some off the planet and going to another third dimensional planet, I don't think I remember that that's going to happen. I think that that's changed. I think that was the plan when it was going to be only maybe 20% at most that were going to evolve, rather than have this terrible catastrophe happen on planet Earth the way that it was going to be done with this. I think it was planned that like an asteroid would hit the planet and the oceans would sweep in and sweep everyone, which is similar to what had happened like Atlantis and Lemura. So instead of that, it was going to be that we're going to take the third dimensional beings who still wanted to stay in a dual-based system, take them to another planet similar to Earth, and allow them to continue on their journey of awakening. But I believe that we've made it far enough along to where it's just going to be more of a natural, if you can have a natural ascension in the body. But humans are going to evolve and go into the fifth dimension. I don't know if it's going to be in the blink of an eye, like some are saying, or take time. Again, that's up to the human collective. But those who are not ready to go will incarnate. They will just reincarnate into a new body on another third dimensional planet. There are other third dimensional planets. And because I don't think that it's going to be that large of a number. Whereas before, having it be most of the Earth humans, it was a different scenario. And also because the vibration of those Earth humans was fairly low. And now everyone is awakening to some extent, it seems like. I think there's an awareness level that's happening. So it's an ongoing process. And if it happens, if it's extended out over so long a period of time, it is true that certainly every soul on the planet can get to that dimension, to that fifth dimension. That's the hope. Because it has, as those who are leading the pack as far vibrationally, they will demonstrate to others, and they will have the effect of pulling their vibration up and bringing them into awareness just through the demonstration of their lives and just through their own vibration, having that impact.